Through the Clare Boothe Luce Policy Institute, Michelle has helped mentor the upcoming generation of women conservative leaders who will be able to look to her as an example of what it means to be a conservative woman, a loose lady. Married 39 years and mother of 3 sons, please help me welcome MichelleEaston.
Thank you so much, Luce. I wish I had that kind of poise when I was in high school. What a nice introduction. My favorite conservative women, you're right, there's so many good ones now, but I have to pick 2, Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann. What women of courage they are to stand up and defend our conservative beliefs. The attacks on them are so incredibly harsh, but that's just FYI. Those are my 2 favorites, but there were some good ones mentioned here as well. Well, I want to welcome you also, and I want to tell you what a wonderful thing it is you're doing to be an intern for the summer. In fact, when I came to Washington 40 years ago, it was to be an intern. And I found that I loved Washington, I loved the policy debate, and I never left. So it's a wonderful thing to be an intern. You're going to learn a lot in your jobs. My first internship was actually at Young Americans for Freedom, which is now Young Americans Foundation, that merged together. And I was a good intern, and I got hired permanently. I had finished my college already. But think of your internships as job interviews and job references, and it will serve you very, very well for your future. So I came here, I stayed here, I married a real good man who was here, and he was working in the conservative movement also, and we raised our 3 sons together here. They've all turned out to be philosophical conservatives, which for a mother is like, yes! What do you do if your kid goes liberal on you? Well, it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. They're good boys. They're handsome. We finally got one married off. I'm pushing the other 2 because I'm firmly convinced that men, no matter how good they are, they become better when they marry a smart, strong, conservative woman. So I'm pushing the other 2. And little sort of personal news here. My oldest son, who married next week, he's going to make me a grandmother of twins. Isn't that exciting? I can't wait. It's funny, you go through these stages in life, your stage, and you're finishing your school, and you're starting your professional life, and then, if you're blessed, you find a good man to marry, and if you're blessed again, you have children, and you go through the baby stage, and it's wonderful, but then you go through the adolescence, you go through the teenage years, it's like, okay, enough. And then you finally start to get your kids married off, and then you want the babies again. You want to hold the babies. It's so exciting, the thought of being a grandmother. At least it is for me. And I don't get that excited about stuff. So this is something you have to look forward for way down the road, maybe 30, 40 years down the road. So the first 20 years that I was here, I worked for, as Laura mentioned, I worked for YAF. I worked for National Right to Work. I went to law school at night because here in Washington, actually, if you've got these great jobs, and you will, if you come to Washington or wherever you go, the law school was a wonderful thing to do, but I was able to do it at night. I had nobody to pay my way, so I worked in the day and then went to school at night. And then I worked 8 years for President Reagan. What a thrill and an honor that was. 4 years for the first President Bush, and that was a treat too. It wasn't as much fun as Ronald Reagan. And then on January 20th, 1993, who knows what happened? January 20th, 1993, there was an inauguration. Bill Clinton, yes. And you know what he did? He fired me. Yes, thank you. It was an honor to be fired by Bill Clinton. To be honest, I was a political appointee of President Reagan and then President Bush. And I sort of waited to see what happened. Some people left early, but he fired us. And then I have to say that it was an honor, in part because he was a disgusting abuser of interns. You all are young, and I don't know if you know about some of what went on, but there was a White House intern named Monica Lewinsky, and she was sort of a crazy mixed-up girl, and she had a disgusting kind of relationship with him in the Oval Office. President Reagan would not even take his suit coat off in the Oval Office because it was such an honor for him to be there. In retrospect, though, that scandal of the president having a relationship with the intern, gross as it was, It seems so mild compared to President Obama, spying on our emails, our telephone calls, not bringing aid for those people in Benghazi so that they could have had a chance to live, the way he's gone after the press, discriminating massively against conservative groups like ours with the IRS. We were audited in 2011. That's the other part of the story you're going to hear about before too long. The Tea Party groups, and Cleta's defended a lot of them. They didn't even get their tax exemptions, but there were a number of other conservative groups that were harassed by these incredibly expensive audits, tens of thousands of dollars we spent on accountants, on lawyers. This was 2011. Oh, what a coincidence. So Clinton was disgusting and gross, but it seems mild in a way compared to Obama. So that was my first 20 years, 1973 to 1993. In 1993, what to do? I was an attorney. I had worked for President Reagan. I had some wonderful experience here. Well, 20 years ago, believe it or not, conservatives were really weak with women. Not that we didn't have good women. I mean, we've always had great conservative women in our homes, in our communities, in our institutions. But as conservatives, we failed to highlight our own great leaders. We failed to hold them up as role models to young women your age. And for too many years, we allowed the left to dominate any discussion there was about women. Now, the left figured out long ago how important women were to advancing their agenda. And in fact, they have misused women. You talk about women's issues. Not really. They're really liberal issues that they claim are really women's issues. How about on your campuses? Women's studies, your women's studies programs represents you? No. It's a rare campus where a women's studies program will even consider conservative thought, conservative books. Some of the young women we've worked with have tried to bring in conservative speakers through Clare, Boothe, Luce with the help of their women's studies program. They don't even get answers. They have no interest in even a semblance, an appearance of fairness. But you all know that, here off the campuses. And then last week, as I was watching the Tea Party ladies testify, and most of the leaders of the Tea Party are ladies, I couldn't help but think of this phony war on women, which we heard so much about during the last election cycle. And that one Tea Party leader, she was from Alabama. She was the president of the Wetumpka Tea Party in Alabama, Becky Garrison. And she said, "I'm a natural-born free American woman, wife, mother, and citizen, and I'm telling my government, you've forgotten your place." Wasn't that powerful? Wasn't she good? She was terrific. But, war on women, conservatives? I don't think so. The IRS war on Tea Party was in effect a war on women because most of the leaders in the Tea Party are women. I love this poster here. Then and now. This top picture, come up, look at it when we have a break, is the board of Young Americans for Freedom back in the 60s. And it was a very distinguished board, but you might notice there was one woman, and it was Marilyn Mannion. She was great. Her father was Clarence Mannion, Dean Clarence Mannion of Notre Dame Law School, great conservatives. But that was what the conservative movement looked like. And this was 60s, so this was quite a few years ago. And then the now. It's just a picture of one of our lunches that we have of all women. We've come a long way in 20 years, but it wasn't that long ago that just one conservative woman seemed to be getting attention on the national scene. For example, Phyllis Schlafly during the fight against the Equal Rights Amendment, or Clare Boothe Luce, the lone conservative woman back in her day, speaking out. But that era of lone conservative woman is over, and you attested to that when so many of you couldn't pick the so many great conservative women. You have so many great leaders to look to. And this is what we do, as Catherine said, at Clare Boothe Luce. We try to promote these great ladies. We give them awards. We have awards galore. And in your binder, I think you have the Great American Conservative Woman Calendar, something we do every year. And every woman in that calendar has spoken for us in the past year, except, of course, Clare Boothe Luce, God bless her, who's up in heaven. But you think about all the great conservative women leaders that we can now claim. And I always start with Palin, who was nominated for vice president 2 elections ago. Michelle Bachmann, she's certainly one of my favorites. I mean, she made a tremendous effort. She was a strong candidate for president. when she ran. You know, she dropped out. It was a big primary. There were a lot of people running. But I was so proud as a conservative woman to see her up there on that debate stage. You know, there were the 9 of them. She's this tiny little thing. She's so beautiful. She's so smart. She's so brave. And the way they go after her, unbelievable. Some of our governors, somebody mentioned Nikki Haley. We have some outstanding women governors who are going to go places. Susana Martinez of New Mexico, she was terrific. We all saw her at the Republican National Convention. She gave a great speech. Jan Brewer of Arizona, we had her speak for us out in Santa Barbara at our Western Women's Summit. Nobody better on immigration. In fact, we had a picture on the program of Jan Brewer with her finger in Obama's face when he came to visit. Was that a great picture? I wanted to project it up on the wall. I just loved it, but we didn't have the right equipment for that. And then Mary Phelan, who you've seen a lot of from Oklahoma with the tornado there. But I mean, her platform was to abolish the state income tax. What a wonderful lady! And she's tried, and she hasn't totally succeeded, but they've started to cut it. These are our ladies. These are conservative ladies. Don't tell me about women's issues. These are the women leaders for America and for the future. And there's many more, as you know, the conservative women news commentators, the public policy leaders, the authors, the talk radio hosts. And this is all in an era that supposedly Barack Obama and his left-wing women allies are dominating. I don't think so. So you may be thinking, this is great. We have all these great conservative women leaders, and they're all doing a great job. Do I have to be a leader too? Yes, you do. And that's what we're going to talk about today. My topic, I think, is why we need conservative women leaders. And I just want to urge you all in the strongest way to become the best leader for our ideas that you can. We can't just let other women step up and do it. And the truth is that God calls us all to serve in different ways. Some of us are going to be home, some of us are going to be working, most of us are going to be doing both. But whatever your forum is, your home, your community, your church, your professional life, you need to be the best leader that you can be. And, the left wants you to say, oh, I don't have to. Don't trouble yourself, conservative ladies. Just talk among yourselves. We'll take care of the women leadership thing. Because they figured out how important women are to advancing the agenda. And conservatives have not always focused as much as we should. We do now. We have wonderful leaders. But we haven't always done it. And that's what we do at Clare, Boothe, Luce. And you need to step up. You need to be leaders in whatever forum you like the best, whatever you're most comfortable with. Because if we don't step up, it allows the left and the liberals and the feminists to supplant you and your ideas with other far less accomplished liberal, radical feminist, left-wing women, the kind that are probably running the women's studies programs on most of your campuses. And it's part of why the left and the media, the popular culture, and many in the world of policy and politics are so ferocious and vicious when our women get into a national position. When Michelle Bachmann was running, some of these loons on like MSNBC, Chris Matthews, frothing from the mouth, which he does anyway, but I remember watching one night, and it was a primary night, and she said something he didn't agree with, and he called her a moron, Chris Matthews. The last time Michelle Bachmann was on his show, he turned off the mic and told her to leave because he disagreed with her. Some of these MSNBC, Ed Schultz, remember he called Laura Ingraham, the talk radio show host, a slut. And when Sarah Palin was running for vice president in 2008, they were just beside themselves. And I remember this in 2008. That was supposed to be Hillary's year. I know this is a while ago, and you all are young, but Hillary Clinton was running for president. Everybody, including me, thought she was going to get the nomination, but Barack Obama beat her out. And then, alas for the left and the radical feminists, on the national ticket with Senator McCain, we had Palin, a gun-toting, moose-hunting, former beauty queen, a woman of great faith with an adoring husband, a patriotic, God-fearing woman with such impressive professional and personal achievements. Governor Sarah Palin. So, did the women's studies programs on your campus celebrate her as a woman leader, even though they might have disagreed with some of her positions? Certainly getting that nomination was significant. No. they unleashed this incredible attack on her, and I'm not going to take time to go through it, but the truth is that the left really gets excited when people like Sarah Palin or people like you get very, very involved, because they prove that even busy housewives and mothers, which was what Palin used to call herself, can stand up and fight big government. And we see her now on Fox, in her Twitter writings, with her books, speaking around the country. There's nothing the left would like better than for average American women and women like you to stay home, just keep paying them tax bills so they can have a monopoly on claiming to represent women and just running this ever-increasing intrusive government. And they want non-leftist students like you to be quiet. And in most students, I know how tough they make it for you to stand up either in your class or in terms of student activities on campus. They don't want you to stand up and challenge your professors. They don't even want you to write a letter to the editor of your paper disagreeing with them. They don't want you to bring conservative speakers like Ann Coulter, because she fills every seat in the room and she brings in people who aren't even conservative and maybe hear for the first time some conservative ideas and reasons why we were right about so many issues, and Michelle Malkin too. They don't want the conservative view to be heard. They sincerely do not. They don't want you to be working with us on maybe V-Day Unveiled, the other side of the Vagina Monologues program. Because they want to go up on stage and perform the Vagina Monologues and talk about their private parts for 90 minutes with nobody having anything to say about that. And they go nuts when people like Sarah Palin and Michelle Bachmann on the national scene and you on your campuses actually stand up and articulate in a polite and professional way an alternative point of view. They want to promote this vision that President Obama talked about, to fundamentally transform America. In Clare Boothe Luce, there's a nice poster of her. Here. She was, the reason we picked her to name the institute after is because we were looking for a woman from modern times who shared conservative values. How many of you have ever heard about her in a academic? Yeah. I mean, you just, Grove City, right? They don't teach her because she was anti-communist, she was pro-free free enterprise, she was devoutly religious, she had a long, long marriage, she had children, she had stepchildren. They don't teach her because she doesn't quite fit the role model. She lived from 1903 to 1987, and when we started to look for women from modern times who we could name the institute after, who would be something of a role model to young women of today, it was really no contest. There was really nobody else. But the left is going to oppose the Palins, the Bachmans, the you on your campus when you speak up, because they can't afford to have a different point of view heard. But we need to continue to promote these leaders, and we need to continue to challenge their vision of womanhood. The women's movement today, they call the women's movement, we know it's the left-wing liberal movement. The original women's movement, of course, was suffragettes, and they were looking for equal treatment under the law for women, something that all of us agree with. But the women's movement today is so curious because it's such a tiny little group of people with such odd left-wing unrepresented views, but somehow in the media and the popular culture, they tend to get away with saying they represent half the people in America. So I want to urge you, please believe me when I say we need you to become the best leaders for conservative ideas that you can. I think you'll find that your work here this summer as an intern will be an important part of your future. But whatever path you choose for your life, you personally can make a tremendous difference for the future of our country. And you have to believe that in order to sometimes face what we face as conservative women when we stand up and promote our ideas. So you're going to hear from some great women today, key women, leaders of the conservative movement here in Washington. They're single, they're married, they're remarried, some have children, some without. Unlike many of the women of the left, conservatives don't demand that women be just one way in order to be leaders. For example, a number of you mentioned Ann Romney as somebody you admired. Do you remember when the Romney advisor sneered about Ann Romney, she said, Ann Romney never worked a day in her life. She raised 5 sons. She created a beautiful home for the family. But that's how the women of the left, the feminists, think about women. So today, we're going to give you some very different thoughts from some of the best conservative women we know. And each one of these women who speak, including Cleta, who's next, each one of them, I want you to know, they have personally inspired me in some way. I've been around a long time, but you can still get inspired, even when you're older. They've inspired me to be better in my professional and my personal life. And I know they will inspire you as well. And I just want to thank you all for being here.